Welcome to the Sanity Project Podcast, the place for techies and non-techies who work in the techie world whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We're here to provide solutions that will help both the techie and non-techie live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project Podcast. Our guest today is Kyle Gorman, and Kyle comes to us today from Western Kentucky, and he is the founder and CEO of Employer Blueprint. Mm-hmm. And I want Kyle to tell us what that business is all about and to talk about how to develop high-performing teams to create more freedom for business leaders. So, Kyle, how did you come to found and become the CEO of Employer, why can't I say that word? Employer Blueprint.
Well, Joanne, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on the show and the opportunity to share with your audience. Basically, there was a need and recognized a need out there, especially in the small business community. No one was really supporting small businesses in finding great talent, retaining great talent, building amazing company cultures. And so it was about 6 years ago now. When I officially launched the company. I'd spent some time before that sort of researching as I recognized that your small and mid-sized companies didn't really have any support when it came to this talent acquisition piece of their business. And so, in the employment space, traditionally we have what you would call a temp agency or an employment or staffing company, which really is very entry-level positions, usually up to $12 to $15 an hour. The vast majority of those are focused in the blue-collar workforce. And then you have your executive recruiting firms that are working with large companies to fill C-suite positions. But your small and mid-sized company that has a need for an office manager or a marketing director or a salesperson or customer support person, no one was helping them at all. And so you have a business owner that is already kind of feels isolated because it can be a little bit lonely in the small business world anyway. And then they are they're working 80 hours or more a week. They're trying to keep up with the business, keep up with the taxes, keep up with the finances. And then someone leaves or the business grows to a point that they need to add someone else. And then they're just going to throw that on their plate as well. And most business owners did not get into their business because of their skills and expertise in talent acquisition and employee retention. They got into the business because they're great in that industry. And so that's the void that we wanted to fill is let's give them some support. Let's give them the expertise that we have in acquiring great talent, putting great people in the business. And then even more importantly than that, setting that business owner, giving them the skills that they need to help that person succeed, from the management skills and the resources that they need to really help their team excel. And so that's ultimately what led into Employer Blueprint. And at the core, we are a team building company. And so we work with small and mid-sized companies to build amazing high-performing teams, which in turn provides, back to your mission, that work-life balance. Because a great team can give you a ton of freedom, and a bad team can just add more stress and work in your life.
Absolutely. There needs to be balance in the team as well because everybody has their own distinct skills that they bring to the table. So do you service beyond where your geographic location is in Western Kentucky?
Absolutely. Yeah, we were very intentional over the last few years of implementing technology to allow us to recruit anywhere in the country. And so anywhere in the United States, we have clients all over from coast to coast. And so we absolutely are able to help outside of our geographic area. In fact, the majority of our business is outside of our geographic area. And so our main focus is helping. We want to make sure that we are a good fit with a potential company. And so we spend some time on the front end investing in that relationship. But with technology as it is today, with video conferencing and, technology has made our world fairly small. And so we're able to recruit for anybody in the country and do so in a way that still stays, very reasonable on cost because we aren't having to fly all over the country to meet with clients and meet with candidates.
Absolutely. So do you, No, scratch that. So let's talk to the audience about teams, high performing teams, and how vital they are to any business, no matter what size. Even a solopreneur needs teams, even if they're not used on a daily basis.
Right.
So how do you develop a high performing team?
Well, that's a great question, and stop me if I start to ramble too long, because I think that ultimately it really breaks down to four principles. And, any leader in an organization, they've got to go into the team concept with the right mind. And the first piece of that would just be the selflessness involved, especially if you're not a solopreneur, if you have employees on staff within your company, the number one top priority that you have to have is recognizing your focus is on doing what's best for those employees. But so once we kind of move past that, we're going to break this into four basic principles that all employees ultimately need, and it's the leadership's responsibility to provide it to them. And the first one is definition. They've got to understand what's expected of them. How did they succeed? What does success look like in their role? How are you defining the position and how they fit into the organization? And so the first thing we look at is definition. The second thing that we all need is autonomy. We need the freedom to succeed, and we need freedom to fail, because that's how we really learn. I like to put it that mistakes are the bridges between failure and success, and we have to provide that level of autonomy to our team members. And basically what this boils down to is don't micromanage. And it's one of the most common mistakes we see made in the business environment. And it's really a pretty simple thing to overcome, but all people need that sense of autonomy. They need that sense of accomplishment, and they get that through the freedom to succeed and the freedom to fail. The third thing that all high-performing teams need, and therefore is something that the leader has to provide, is sociability in the workplace. This can sometimes be a challenge for people because they think of it as a waste of resources or a waste of time or inefficient. But studies have proven over and over again that not to be the case at all. In fact, sociability in the workplace actually creates higher performing teams because it creates a true team environment. And it's easy for us to throw that term around of team, but we really start to create a team environment in which we have each other's back when we have a level of sociability in the workplace. And so we have to not only accept that that's going to happen, but as leaders, we have to encourage it. We have to participate in it. We need to really make sure that that is an important aspect of our company culture. And then the last thing, the fourth thing, is recognition. We've got to recognize our team members. So all people need that. They need that encouragement. They need that recalibration. And recognition provides so many things other than just simply a pat on the back. Recognition helps us calibrate to make sure that we are focusing back on that definition piece, what we've defined as success for the position. It helps us reinforce positive actions that we want them to continue to behave with. And this recognition continues to help solidify the relationship between employer and employee. So, all of those things can get broken down into an hour each of understanding and descriptors. But as it, if we really look at it just at a high level, those are the four things that high performing teams need. And it is the responsibility of the business leader to provide those things to them.
And those are wonderful. I mean, those are necessary and vital parts, and four make a foundation. I look at it from construction. I look pretty much everything as construction, and the four walls and the four concrete pillars of foundation. But what do you do? And what do you do if your leader doesn't get this, doesn't understand this? Immediately, if you have someone who's been in business for a while and they've done things their way, as most people do, and they're not successful or as successful as they would like to be, and then we go with, okay, we have a new way of doing things here because you've hit a wall, and Kyle and his business people are coming in to help you knock down that wall, or at least help you create a doorway through that wall, and you have a resistant leader. What do you do with him or her in that situation?
Well, I think at that point, you've got to very quickly recognize, is this person going to get on board with the concept or not? And obviously, the hope is always to remedy the situation. And so, I'm a firm believer in coaching at all levels and at all times. And I also kind of have what I call the 3 strategies of coaching, in which we should either be coaching to excel, coaching to improve, or coaching to remove. And all people that we have responsibility for within our organization should be receiving one of those coaching strategies at all times. And so if we have someone who's a leader in our organization who doesn't buy into this, I kind of look at it as if this is part of the values of who we are, if this is part of who we are, the fabric of our organization, if they don't fit well with that, they may not be the right fit with us. And so it's possible that the most loving thing we could do for them is to help them move on to another opportunity that they might fit better. But the first thing we would want to look for is, can we remedy this? Is this just simply someone that has an aversion to change and therefore they are concerned about what this all looks like? Or do they truly just not agree with this? And there are people like that out there, that they want to take a very dictatorship style of management. They prefer to micromanage everyone around them. They don't believe in sociability in the workplace and don't think that it's important. And if you have someone that really believes those things at the core of who they are, but you buy into the understanding of this is how you're going to build a high-performing team, then I believe what you've got to do is start implementing a process in which you exit them lovingly from the organization and help them move on somewhere else that has the same core values that individual does. But that sounds difficult, and I'm not saying it's easy from an emotional perspective, but without that happening, the business will never get to where it needs to be. And so you owe it to the business, you owe it to the people around it, and frankly, you owe it to that individual that isn't performing up to your standard, because they're not happy either. If they're in that type of situation, they aren't pleased with where they are. And so it could truly be the most loving thing you could do for them is help them recognize and understand it's time for them to move on to something else.
Okay, so when you have a team who has made a great success, I mean, I believe in celebrating everything in sight. I mean, that's just the recognition of the team members includes lots of things, in my opinion. So how have you seen a good, solid working team, an effective team, benefit a company in your work? You know, tell me about a change that has occurred, a dynamic that was put in place and then expanded and exploded to make the business more successful. People need to know why people who are listening are either part of a team or are going to be part of a team, and they're not happy either way because teams are not held well in the tech world. Everybody's out for each other, and it's just not a good place to be. So they need to have some tools. They need to know that it is possible that your team, the team that is being created right now in other businesses, or the team that, Employer Blueprint can come in and help build, will be successful and will make a difference in the business. So tell me about something that really Superman-like that worked.
Yeah. Well, let me describe 2 different environments for you. One is what we often see as we step into an organization. Everybody's kind of out for themselves. They tolerate their coworkers, maybe even like a couple of them, but dislike the others. They do a pretty decent job, maybe even be experts in their field and know how good they are. And there's a sense of arrogance that comes along with that. And they don't understand why they aren't treated better than they are right now, and think they deserve more than others around them because of their knowledge and experience and expertise. And there's a constant underlying tension. And if there's a problem in your department, that's your problem. And I expect you to fix it because I don't want it to impact my department and cause a problem in my life. That is a norm across our company cultures today. Now, the flip side of that is an environment in which we all have a healthy respect for each other. We don't have to like each other, and we don't have to go out for a drink after work all the time, but we understand that we're all human, and we all have things going on in our lives, and we care about that, and we understand who each other, kind of what makes us tick. That whenever there's a problem within the company, it's all hands on deck because we're really focused on what the company is doing and the impact that the company has on our clients. And we don't want you as an individual person to have to be challenged with this because we respect and like you. And then by doing that, people are less concerned about the clock and what's happening at 8 o'clock and at 5 o'clock, and much more concerned about what's happening within the company and how we make sure that everything's taken care of. And ultimately, that's the type of the type of environment that we want to create. And what we've seen happen is, by going in and whenever we're able to step into an organization and we're able to work directly with the leadership of that company and help them understand how to implement these things, ultimately, what it should do and what it has done, we've got a proven track of this, is it's going to help your bottom line because you're going to be able to do more with the same number of people or fewer people, because they're going to be more satisfied in their job. And job dissatisfaction is at all-time highs, like somewhere around 70% right now. Mm-hmm. So if we can get people satisfied with their job, where they actually enjoy going to work and enjoy being around their coworkers and enjoy the leadership of their organization, their productive time significantly increases. And so I can get more done with fewer people, or a lot more done with the same number of people I have right now. The other thing that this does is it creates much more freedom. And we talk about that even, our tagline is creating freedom for business owners, their guaranteed talent acquisition program, and building high-performing teams. Our focus is to provide freedom for that business owner, because oftentimes business owners feel shackled to their business. They're handcuffed to it. They can't go anywhere without thinking about it, worrying about it, living in it. I've heard over many, many stories of people saying, I technically have taken a vacation in the last 2 or 3 years, but I'm getting 10 calls a day. Or those that say, I don't really even know what a vacation is. I had one that actually told me a while back, they went on vacation for the first time in 3 years. First day they were on vacation, they were sitting on the beach, got a call that someone on their team quit, and they literally turned around and came back. And that's the norm. I mean, your audience, I believe, will relate to this. This is so normal in today's environment. So what we want to do is we want to create freedom for that business owner. We want to help acquire, we want to help recruit people that really have the personality to fit into the organization and the culture that's being created, that have a commitment to this career and have a commitment to this type of organization. And people that have the basic transferable skills to do the job, because we can teach the skills, but let's focus on personality and commitment. And then we want to make sure that you as the business leader are outlining what's expected. We go back to those 4 principles. Does everybody on your team know what's really expected of them to succeed? Because if not, they're going to make up their own truth. And so we've got to make sure that we are providing that truth for them and helping them understand this is, if you do these 5 things every day, week, month, you're going to be successful. Here's the roadmap. And so it's up to us as leaders to help define those things. Once we do that and they start giving them that freedom and move away from micromanagement, that frees up a ton of time for the business owner, because they aren't having to look over people's shoulders, because they've gotten comfortable with their knowledge of what to do. And then that sociability in the workplace, that helps even the business owner, because they feel more connected to the people working with. I mean, Joanne, we spend oftentimes more time with our coworkers than we do our spouse and our kids.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how miserable is it to be around people that we don't enjoy spending time with? Mm-hmm. So when we can create that team and we can create a social aspect to our workplace that we actually want to be around those people, then for us as the business leader, it's much more enjoyable as well. Like I can look forward to going in on Monday morning and catching up about the weekend, because I know one of my coworkers, one of the employees, they had a really fun thing going on, or they had a child that graduated, and I want to hear about that graduation party, and I want to know how that went. And so what this does ultimately, at the end of the day, if we were to break it down to one word, it's freedom. We're helping the business owner just get unshackled from that business, because with a high-performing team, that they don't have to make every single decision. They don't have to be there every minute of the day. They can have a team and they can trust a team to do these things for them. So imagine, if you haven't been on vacation in 3 years, being able to take a week off, go on vacation, and not receive a phone call, and actually be able to invest in yourself to say, hey, what can I do to help make this business better, make it bigger, make it more profitable? Whereas oftentimes we get so stuck in the day-to-day, we never have that opportunity. And it's generally because we don't have the team around us to help us get there.
Yeah, I'm back on the guy who turned around and came back as a team member quit.
Yeah.
And to me, if you had a good team, the right team, a high-functioning team, somebody would have just stepped left, somebody else would have stepped right, and then filled the space. Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't like the team was reinventing the world.
Exactly.
No matter what they were doing, they could have handled it. Even a good team should have,
Right.
should, I hate that word, but that's my word I'm going to use for today, should have been able to handle it by just stepping in and saying, hey, Joe's gone. We need this project done. Harry's
Yep.
on vacation. He hasn't had one for 3 years. He's only going away for a week, people. We can give him this week. So when he comes, I mean, to me, that's common sense, but I guess sense is no longer common.
Right. And you're exactly right in what you said. That's what it should be. But let me tell you the conversation that usually happens or kind of the error in that is that those people probably don't know that the owner hadn't had a vacation in 3 years because they don't have a strong enough personal relationship with them, or really the owner's fault. The owner doesn't have a strong enough relationship with their employees for them to know how much he needed that time to decompress and invest in his family. And they hadn't done enough to cross-train and develop the relationships in the organization that others understood what that person was doing enough to say, hey, I think we can step in and help do this. So we didn't have the depth of relationship needed within the staff, laterally and horizontally within the organization, for them to be able to say, what's more important right now is we just need to help take care of this, and we need to allow this person to take a few days off. And one of the most beautiful things that I ever experienced was a few years ago as we were kind of building our internal team. And these principles have come from trial and error on my own part over the last 20 years. I remember a few years ago whenever I went on vacation, and it was the first time within my small business, whenever I'd gotten out of the corporate world, it was the first time in a small business where I took a vacation. I remember being gone for a week. And for me, being gone meant I'm checking in every day and I'm doing whatever. And I went 1 week, never received a phone call. And I came back, we had signed 2 new clients. We had, the financials were good. Everything was great. And it was so amazing to me to be able to walk back in on a Monday and not feel like I dreaded or I regretted having that vacation, because I had a team around that just said, that's great, Kyle, enjoy your vacation. We got it covered. We got things taken care of. The processes are in place. We know what we're doing. We don't need you. And there is such an amazing sense of freedom when you find out your team doesn't really need you. And that should be our goal, is to always be working ourselves out of a position and then put ourselves in something else that we're able to benefit the organization.
Absolutely. So before we end this, would you please go back to the top 4 of what makes a good team? You had definition, autonomy, social ability, and recognition of team members. That's what I wrote down. But I think that deserves a repeat.
Yeah.
And I don't think you could say it often enough.
Yeah. So basically what high-performing teams need they need definition, autonomy, sociability, and recognition. So definition, they've got to understand what's expected of them. What does success look like in their position? How do they fit into the organization? They need to have autonomy. They need to have freedom to succeed and freedom to fail. And then they need to have sociability. They need to have relationships within the organization. They need to have personal relationships. They need to understand the human aspect and the human nature of those around them and build the depth of relationship that's needed there. And then they need recognition. People need to know a job well done. And they need to understand, even whenever they fail, that you are there to help pick them up and help them move on and find what they did well. I'll give you a really, really quick, short example. I one time, early in my career, I was still in college and I had a part-time job, and I really screwed something up bad, and it cost the money, I'm sure, several $1,000s because of a mistake I made driving a forklift. And I remember my boss, and I hadn't been there very long, and I remember my boss came around the corner, and I was expecting quite a bit of language to come out of his mouth that I can't repeat on a podcast. And instead, he came around the corner, and his comment to me was, Kyle, that's what I like. And he wasn't happy, but he did say, that's what I like about you. You don't want to sit around. You want to get stuff done.
There you go.
And the fact that he was able to see the positive in what I did, which was, hey, instead of waiting for me to be here and get this, you just jumped in and you started working. And he was able to see that positive. That meant so much to me, as opposed to constantly seeing what's wrong. And here's where the recognition piece is challenging, because what I want your audience to hear in this is, recognition doesn't always mean that you're finding the great things people do. That's easy to see. Recognition for a great leader means that you're finding the normal average stuff, the repeatable behavior, pointing out the things that someone does that you just sort of naturally expect to get done, because that's what creates that positive reinforcement that makes them want to do those things again. And so recognition, don't think it comes easy, because it doesn't, because we have to find the things that are just sort of naturally expected, and we have to recognize those things to keep people on track of even doing the simple day-to-day things that, if it's someone in your company, if their job is to take out the trash, recognize them for taking out the trash and doing a good job of that. The fact that it gets done every day, good for them. And I really appreciate that you do that in our company. It means a lot to us. Yeah. So don't take for granted the simple things. We've got to recognize everything that's happening, because everything that those folks are doing around us are helping provide freedom for us and success in our business.
So for those of you who are listening today, and I fully expect you to share this podcast with the rest of your team and as your directors, your CEOs, whoever you can share it with, so that they can hear Kyle Gorman, CEO of Employer Blueprint, on how he has guaranteed he has a guaranteed talent acquisition program, and they hire and manage principals to help business owners and or leaders, even if they're not owners, the leaders in the company, the owners of parts of the company, to succeed and get where they need to get, so that they can get more freedom for themselves, for the company, and for their team as well. So Kyle, how can people find you to hire you?
Yeah, well, so you can check out the two websites I would recommend. You can check out employerblueprint.com, and it's exactly as it sounds. There's no crazy spelling. It's just employerblueprint.com. And you also can check out my site at kylegorman.com. And I'm happy to share, on either of those. You can connect directly with me, contact me, email me. Even if you just need a resource or have a quick question, I'd love to share. Our goal is to help provide support to building those teams, whether you decide to hire us or not. If there's something we can answer for you, I want to be a resource for you.
Well, whoever is listening, I want you to know that Kyle Gorman is a very generous human being. He's compassionate, he's caring, and he has a great deal of empathy for everyone in the workplace. So I want to thank you all for listening, and I want you to go to iTunes and give Kyle Gorman a 5-star review. And don't forget to share this podcast episode with everybody on your team and the teams that surround you. I hope everybody has a great day. And this is Joanne Victoria along with Kyle Gorman saying, have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Work-Life Balance. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.